Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to the Conquering Your Clownfish podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome my incredible guest, Betsy Hicks-Russ, director of Autism Odyssey, a nonprofit focused on autism awareness, inclusivity, and empowerment. She's the proud mom of Joey, her son with non-speaking autism, and a talented cyclist. Betsy is the creator of Picky Eating Solutions, helping families navigate mealtime challenges. She's also a fellow podcast host and a true master of Plan B, always bringing creativity and heart to everything she does. I'm thrilled to have her on the show today. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you. That master of Plan B is something I recently started to use to describe myself, because when I think about what I'm most proud about, it's the fact that I can pivot relatively easy.
Yes. I have to say, I think for many parents that have a loved one with a special need or disability, many could claim that title of master of Plan B, and I have no doubt that you truly are a master of Plan B.
It's fun. It's fun.
So this is awesome. We were just visiting as we were preparing to be able to do this show, and I made a comment that I actually want to make on the show, and that is just how authentic you are in your content that you create. And you're a great example for me. I oftentimes feel a need to be able to get something out there and keep the stories alive and so forth. And so, you're capturing content and doing your best to keep that alive. But you are one that you can tell that everything that you post is very well thought out and comes from a place of very pure intent, like it comes from your heart. And I just love that about the content that you're creating. I thought that would be important to share that.
Really appreciate that. I think it comes from the fact that I read all of my comments.
Yeah.
Very rarely does something go so viral that I just can't keep up with it. Reading the comments really helps me connect with the viewer and what it is that they want and what they struggle with and what their questions are. And then that's what my inspiration is for going forward with my next video.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So Joey's awesome. Joey is
Is
awesome.
he
And
is.
I think Joey follows in your footsteps as well, that I feel like he is very, very authentic. What you see is what you get, and he is his best self. But I'll be honest in saying it was hard not to keep tears from flowing as I watch some of the messages that you guys exchange. So Joey is non-speaking, but he is very, very verbal and very communicative in the sense of some of those things that he does share with you. And so can you share with us about that journey of this spelling board and how Joey is communicating right now? I think that is a really, really unique thing that you guys have right now.
Yes, and thanks for using the term non-speaking. I'm hoping it's going to continue to grow, because we have to stop thinking of these children as not having any words. They are verbal. They're just not speaking them. They have so many words. So yes, this is nothing I expected in my life. I don't even think I could have dreamt up something as remarkable as what's been happening over the last year. And that's part of where the surrender comes, isn't it? As parents, we think we know what's going to be best for our kids, but we at one point have to really fully surrender and be like, what do you think is best for my kids? Because we don't always know the path. And that happened pretty much for me in the sense of kind of coming in threes. Several people at the same time started telling me about spelling to communicate. And I was convinced, as are most parents who start spelling to communicate, that that might be fine for some children, just not mine. My child does this. My child does this. My child would never attend. My child, I don't think, is that smart. My child is too dysregulated to be able to spell. There's so many arguments for the limitations that we kind of set on our kids. And so it took some convincing and a lot of dedication and a lot of faith to believe that what I was next investing my money in was going to pay off. but a series of things just kept continually happening to not him just coming to his first spelling lesson with the spell board and just being like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've always known how to spell." That's so rare that it happens like that. And so, I mean, it was starting at a very primitive beginning that required a lot of faith on my part to be like, "Am I investing my dollars in this? Am I investing my time and dysregulation into this?" But there was just something about it that just I've said this before that I felt like this is it. If this doesn't work, he's almost 32. Like, if this doesn't work, I don't ever have a chance of communicating with my child. D Sure enough, he started showing me these little signs, little by little, that he was 100% understanding, and then about end of summer last year, we started open communication where he's able to actually convey messages to me.
So, um, I have so much emotion around this. And so I had not been following you prior to the spell board and you guys' communication that was happening there. And so I'm curious about what was it like before? And how did you guys communicate before? Because the conversations and the communication that you're having right now is amazing. I mean,
So
your
amazing.
son is sharing
So amazing.
he loves you and he's telling you, "Mom, never change. You're amazing and thank you so much." I mean, this is this
And
is
the
amazing, but how
yeah.
was that before? So what did that look
So
like before?
well, this is kind of where my humbleness has all taken place on social media. I have not gone out there with anything but a humbleness of embarrassment of how I used to think about what he understood. How the many things that I said in front of him, not thinking he was paying attention. Because in my mind, eye contact and slowing the body down and looking at me, just and being present with me and not making sounds, that was understanding. It wasn't rocking in the corner and clapping his hand and humming a tune. He couldn't possibly be understanding what I'm saying if he's doing that. And that was completely wrong. And that's where I feel like the journey that I've had on social media has been so powerful because I've brought along hundreds of thousands of people for the ride. They're experiencing it with me.
Yes.
And that has been so incredible to be able to be like, "Oh my gosh, did you see this?" And I'll be honest, there are days most days, people get more excited about what comes out of Joey than my own family does sometimes. Like, my family's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." I'm like, "Dude," but the people online are like, "I can't believe he said that," and da da da.
Yes.
So, it's been an incredible journey, a lot of humbleness, a lot of internal pain over the things that have happened over the last 3 decades of me not understanding. But Joey isn't living in a world of forgiveness. He is ready to forgive and forget and move on. And so we're taking it from where we have it now, which is this beautiful relationship. And regardless of whatever he says to me or whatever he can now communicate to me, the power has been more in the fact that I know that he knows.
Yes.
And that's bigger than him even being able to communicate with me because it's the way that I now speak to him and include him, and it's changed everything.
Well, it has and it would. It just like I said, I have a lot of emotion around this. With going forward and your and so I apologize. I have so many thoughts on this. Let's just start with how does this change the trajectory of what your relationship is on what Joey is involved in activities in like how has this changed over the last year? What has this changed? I mean, in the past, it's fair to say there really wasn't communication there. I mean, body language and so forth that you just had to kind of make it up as you go. Whereas now Joey can tell you that his favorite color is green, not blue, and like very specific things. And so, tell me how this changes what you look at the next 32 years of Joey's life as a mother.
Well, he's conveyed to me several times through spelling that, his goals, because that's the interesting thing about our kids. No one ever asks them what their goals are. They've never had an option to have goals. They've never You imagine the hopelessness of never being able to even set a goal and being completely at the whim of what your parents think your goals are or your caregivers think that your goals are. So now that he's able to convey his goals, I'm able to better support that. His goals are advocacy. So he understands the social media end of things. He doesn't love it in the sense of, hey, Joe, let's do something for social media. Can you figure it out without me? Because he doesn't, he's a little self-conscious about it. He feels that he wants to be a good representation and he doesn't want to be portrayed in anything other than something that's actually going to be able to help somebody, which is part of why I started a podcast because I was running out of Joey material because I firmly believe I should ask his permission before I film anything. And he wasn't always saying yes. And so I was like, okay, I got to find another way to fill this void. So let's do a podcast. So that's kind of why we got started. But he appreciates that. He appreciates the words that I put out there. He's very sweet. Sometimes he gives me permission to film him during spelling, other times not so much. But understanding why he has his meltdowns, understanding the pain. And this is on a biomedical standpoint. I'm able to support his digestion more because I've realized that so much of his meltdowns are caused by his gut, even though,
Really?
I mean, I've been in this field of holistic medicine for many decades because my previous husband was a holistic pediatrician. And so I have been working on that end of things with diet and supplements for a lot of years, but he still struggles with a lot of gut problems and says his gut is a part of the reason that he has his meltdowns. So
And
understanding, like, go
prior
ahead.
to
Sorry.
this,
Yeah.
there was no way of him communicating that. You truly had no idea. You just knew he had meltdowns, but you didn't know why.
I think the best way to know if the meltdowns are being caused by something psychotic versus something intestinally is if medication works or not. Medications never worked for us, which was an indicator that we're looking in the wrong place. So working on his gut has always been a lifelong goal of mine, but we're not letting that go. It's a continuous work in action. And there's a lot to be done. And that's part of why I teach the picky eating courses because I know the struggles. I've been doing this for so many years. I'm working with picky eaters with my late husband that I know the struggles that people are faced with and I know the solutions. And I'm trying to look at affordable ways. So I have this online class that's very affordable and that people can just watch the 70 videos of all the different tips and things that they can try. And so the gut is the one thing that Joey has conveyed, but he's also been able to share his dreams in sense of, he says he wants to be an advocate, but he also, he would love a relationship. And I didn't know that. Uh, he would love, he wants to be able to make more decisions on his own. So my big goal over the last couple of months is now that he's getting better and better at spelling all the time is you're going to choose. And it was really, really fun to say, we have 5 days off. We're going to go on a biking adventure because I knew he wanted to bike. Where do you want to go? And he spelled it out as clearly as can be, Penticton, which is a beautiful place in British Columbia for cycling. And so we're driving and we looked at Joe and we're like, you did this. You made this happen. You did this. He was so proud that whole trip because we kept just saying to him over and over again, you made this happen. And it was a powerful trip.
Wow. I again, I've done probably close to 200 episodes now between this podcast and another podcast. And I don't recall ever feeling so just speechless with how impactful what you are saying is, because Joey all along has had that in him and no way of being able to express that and to share that. And so much so as caregivers, as parents, we are protective of our children. And oftentimes we don't assume competence that we should. And we see them and our in our desire to protect them are trying to make it so nothing bad ever happens to them, and in doing so make it so nothing good ever happens to them, right? But this tool, this ability for him to be able to communicate, changes everything for you guys. And I just, as you continue to talk, there just continues to be example after example in my mind of how this is like a new lease on life. It's as if you just landed in a new world that is now filled with unlimited opportunities. I mean, imagine that. Can you imagine 5 years ago you having a conversation with your son about him potentially having a relationship with another person?
No. No, I could never there's so many things that Joey's accomplished that I could never have seen. The housing situation where we were able to get him an apartment last year, I didn't even know what that looked like, and I think that that's just such a big message to other parents is we see so many things are so big and they're so far away, and it just seems impossible, but the beauty is just those small little steps that you just take in the right direction and you just get there. I mean, whether it's introducing your first vegetable or it's getting an apartment for independent living, there's baby steps that need to be taken. You can do it if you break it apart, but we get overwhelmed and we get just unable to move on and understandably because we're tired. We're tired. It is a hard work
It
to be
is.
a parent 24/7. And when there's meltdowns involved, it's even harder. And you'd never know what to expect. So it's not to say that any of this that I have done has been easy or it's a privilege or it's sure, I will be the first to say I had a little extra funds to be able to go towards it. So that is definitely a privilege. But Spelling to Communicate has some really good online programs that parents can learn themselves
Wow.
and learn programs that they can do. So it's one of the few therapies that's out there that doesn't require you to second mortgage your house. And yeah, so that's why I've got a big voice about it because I really want to see. And more importantly, we have to get this in the schools. And it's going to happen, but we need Asha to have a nice slice of some humble pie and to back down the bullying before that's going to actually come to fruition.
No doubt. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So you bring up meltdowns, and that brings me to another topic I wanted to visit with you about, and that is this vest that Joey wears when he is in public. And oftentimes he's the one that is choosing whether or not to wear it. And so,
I beg him not to wear it some days. I'm just like, "Joey, do you really have to wear this?" And sometimes I'll be shooting a video and I'm like, "No, we're taking it off for the video." And he gets really
you're like,
upset. And I'm
no.
like, "I just don't want people thinking that I put this on you all the time." But he loves his vest.
Well, let's talk about it for our listeners that don't know what this is. This is a vest. It's an orange vest that Joey wears in public sometimes, right?
Yeah,
And
most of the time.
most of the time, okay. And then it remind me the words that it says
So
on.
it says, "Autistic, be kind."
Yes,
That's it. Both
autistic,
sides.
be kind. Yep. And it's even a vest he kind of tucks his arms into as well,
Yeah.
right?
He loves to tuck his arms in. Yeah.
Yes. And so when I first, in fact, that's how I found you is when I saw the vest and you were actually talking about that. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to create so much controversy. I'm actually curious. Like your response was so humble and so kind and so sincere and so empathetic to the people that were so critical of you as well. But I can see why this creates controversy. So let's talk about that a little bit. And so,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. So the vest started not as any thought of wearing something all the time. The vest started when we were living in San Francisco, and Joey is a great cyclist, but Joey doesn't understand. Let me rephrase that. Joey's apraxia makes it challenging for him to have courtesy. And it's not that he doesn't want courtesy or doesn't understand it. His body is going to do what his body's going to do. So he was constantly, every 5 minutes, being yelled at by another cyclist. Move over. You're in the way. Like, what are you doing? Get out of the, constantly being yelled at. And then we would scream, he's autistic. And they would be like, oh, sorry. And, you're trying to do this as you're on a bike. And it's like, it was a mess. So I had seen this orange vest at the bike store, and I just went to the hobby store and I just bought iron-on letters and said it just said autistic. And we put it on him, and overnight I was crying by the end of the ride. It was like a switch. Everybody was thumbs up. Great job. Please go in front of us. Glad to see you're out there. High five. It was a totally different experience. And so that became a part of our biking regimen. And then he would do things at that time where he was taking garbage cans and putting them on top of his head. So we'd go for a walk in San Francisco and he'd take people's garbage cans, and it was becoming challenging. So we're like, let's maybe put the vest on him. Then again, people were just super understanding. It's okay. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Nobody was screaming out their window or anything such as that. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm on to something. And then I kept getting this voice in the middle of the night. You need to make these. You need to make these. I'm like, nope, nope, that's not me. I can't even tell you how much I fought the sound. I can't even tell you how much I fought the voices. And so finally I found a seamstress and we had them made locally. So they were really expensive because I had them made in San Francisco, but we made a bunch of them. And oh no, the criticism I got was huge. The labeling criticism I got was
From the
huge
community, I
from the
imagine.
community.
Yes.
So, but Joey continued to wear his and I sold a couple of them. And then we moved to Washington State and I had free time because Joe and I were out and about at beaches and doing cycling events, and I had an opportunity to sit with people and talk with them about the vest. And once I explained it on a level that was not I wasn't like, "I'm right." It was, I understand. I understand that you feel I'm labeling, but let me tell you about it." And my tell you about it is the fact that aside from the fact that he purposely puts it on every day because he says people are nicer to him and he likes it. The fact remains is that if Joey is sitting on the beach nicely and playing with the sand, you don't need to know he's autistic. If he is on a ferry watching the waves, you don't need to know. But on a dime, it can change. On a dime, he may grab somebody's cell phone and put it on the top of his head. He likes to put things on the top of his head. He'll grab somebody's cell phone or he will do things that are spontaneous and scary. And our world can be scary. And I understand that people get very threatened when somebody all of a sudden starts screaming. Different if it's a child, but if it's a adult, darn it, I'm telling you, the fear is real. The fear of threat for your child is very real. And so what my explanation is just that it is not first off, it is a label. I'm not going to discard the fact that it's a label. It is a label, but it's a label to soften and to help get communication going and understanding and compassion going, and to say to yourself, this person needs special considerations. And so when we go out now and people see that, they loosen a little bit. They don't tighten like, is this man on drugs and he's going to clobber me over the head? Joey was thrown across the street in San Francisco one time when he grabbed somebody's phone into the line of traffic. And so we have to find ways to protect ourselves. And for Joey, he's really not worried about the label. He's just concerned that people are going to be compassionate to him.
I actually am emotional as I hear you talk about this because I've actually carried to a certain degree guilt and the reason like where that comes from is so I have two boys that have Down syndrome, and when we go in public people look at them and they see that and they immediately are more kind and more patient and more forgiving and allow things to slide that they wouldn't let other kids slide. And I have felt so bad for so many years for my dear friends and our community of individuals that have a loved one with a disability that you don't see just by looking at them, and that they have to face everything that you just talked about for all those years. And so, like, what a tender mercy that is for
It,
Joey and for
and
you.
so many others. We've sold over 500 vests now
I just understand it.
all over the world. A lot of them in Sweden and Denmark. Like I sell a lot of vests in the Northern European area, not so much in the UK, but a lot in Sweden and Denmark. And I
Interesting.
don't know, there's probably a cultural reason for that being the case.
Yeah.
But I and we're just now we have one that says non-speaking be kind, and we have another one that says special needs be kind. And the messages I get from the families just, they just warm my heart. Like, especially at the playgrounds for the little ones that are wearing it. The
Yeah.
parents need it the most at the playgrounds because the kids may do things and moms can be so protective of their kids and they'll be like, what is that kid doing to my kid? That helps soften it for the little ones a lot.
It is so true. And here's another thought that I had as you were sharing that. You share about how that kept coming to you in the middle of the night, this voice and this intuition, just this feeling in your heart that you're supposed to do this. And like that just resonates so strongly with me that I believe life entrusts us with experiences so that we can take those experiences and do good in the service of others. And the reality is whether that's for somebody faith-based thing or a karma
Yeah.
thing or the universe is speaking to you, whatever that may be, is somebody's own personal belief. But without question, that was something you were supposed to do. And here's my personal opinion on why. You see, anybody could come up with an idea to create a vest, and anybody can create a vest. But what's special about you is your ability to communicate in an empathetic and loving way why this is so important and allow all those fiery arrows and those fiery darts coming at you to just hit and fall and actually show empathy and understand why they're sending those your way. That's a superpower that you have. You realize that, I hope.
I appreciate that very much. That means a lot to me. And it comes with age. Not caring what people think comes with age.
Yeah, my kids
I'm gonna
being
be
broken.
yeah, I'm gonna be 60 next year, and I have lived a lot of life, and I have seen that the ways to change, to make change happen is a part of communication, not in screaming at people. That's not how change happens. That's just preaching to your choir. If you go online, if you go on here and you just start screaming about all the things, you're getting your choir riled up and more powerful, but you're not making change happen. Change happens with explanation. Change happens for, I understand your reasoning for thinking this, but let me explain my reasoning for doing this. And that's where in every subject, on every category, that's how we make change happen in this world. And that's what I'm really passionate about.
So I'm going to share something I actually just heard this morning. I was out for a jog and I was listening to a podcast, and the guest shared an example of he had three little boys, ages 4, 6, and 8, and they were having Lucky Charms for breakfast. And the 4-year-old was eating his Lucky Charms, and he said, "I love Yucky Charms. I love Yucky Charms." And the 6-year-old looked at him and said, "You are saying that wrong. It's not Yucky Charms, it's Wucky Charms." And the 8-year-old looked at him and said, "You're both wrong. Like, you both are saying it wrong. It's Lucky Charms. Like, I'm right and you're wrong. Like, you guys are so off." And the podcast host said they all three were wrong. And what I mean by that is there was a right way and a wrong way to go about helping somebody understand the correct pronunciation. And yes, the first two were saying it wrong, but the third one, even though he was saying it wrong, went about it the wrong way. He was doing it to prove that he was right and not to try and help his other two children. And that
Exactly.
just resonated really strongly with me. And I think a lot about that as well. And that's a superpower that you have, Betsy, is in being able to not say who's right and who's wrong, but to be able to speak reason with kindness and with love on these subjects that are so controversial. Because as parents, I mean, the name of this podcast is Conquering Your Clownfish, off the inspiration of Nemo's dad, Marlin, who's this overprotective clownfish parent that is out to protect his son and conquer the
Right.
world from ever
Right.
doing anything bad to him. So we are all clownfish parents in our own way, whether we have a special needs child or not, in trying to protect and right and wrong and our values and whatever that may be. But there's a right way to approach that, and that is with kindness and with love. And that's the perfect example that you share. If you if you're okay with this, I'm going to share something that I think is very applicable to what we're talking about here. What we've referenced is our children who have a disability and our desire for the world, the community, society as a whole to have kindness, have empathy, and to give grace to what we are experiencing. But the reality is it goes across all facets of humankind. And so I was listening. I was listening to a lady share an experience that she had. And this happened here locally in Salt Lake City, and she was actually coming from the funeral of her child. Okay, and so something that I never would ever, I can't even imagine what that must have been like. But her and her husband were driving up a canyon up to Park City. It's a freeway, but it's going up this, kind of windy roads, and it was rainy. And they had just buried their child. And as they were driving, they didn't realize, but they were driving slow. And it was causing a little bit of traffic. And somebody came by them and swerved over and like cut them off to where, was proving the point that you're frustrating me and that you're creating so much angst in my life. You're driving incorrectly. And surely they were driving too slow. But here's the point is she said, if they knew where we were coming from and why, they would not have done that. Nobody would have done that. And that they would have given complete grace and complete empathy. And that's the thought that I continue to come to my mind as I see this vest. We all, in our own way, can be wearing a vest that says what is weighing on our hearts and weighing on our minds in that moment. And everybody in society has a vest that they could be wearing. That if we just knew, it was 2 words or 3 words that was on their vest, if we just knew what was weighing on them, we would immediately be more kind. And so I guess the
Right.
thought on this as I've talked with you today is how amazing would it be if we all just assumed and just assumed that somebody needed kindness and somebody needed empathy, that when they're blocking your way on the bike ride, that you just assume that they're doing so not out of mean or deliberately, but they're doing it simply because there's something else weighing on them, and go by and give them a high five and give them a thumbs up and tell them they're doing a great job instead of saying, move over, right? And so you have found something that is a miracle for not just Joey, but for everybody in society, whether in a disability or not. And so I just am a huge fan of what you're doing.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work. What a delightful conversation this has been. You're just a delightful person. In fact, will you share your Instagram and your TikTok handles so
Absolutely.
people
I'm
can
I'm
follow you?
across the board, including my website is Betsy on the go. And that's the best way to find me for everything. And we have so many things, including a brand new, I don't know if you even know about this. We're doing mom's retreats.
Wonderful.
I'm starting mom's retreats for mothers that are caregivers for weekend retreats. And because that is such a passion of mine to help nourish the moms for a weekend and let it be about them for at least a couple of days.
Wow. Well, that is so needed as a husband to an amazing caregiver and my wife, Andrea, to our
Yes,
many children. She would so much enjoy something of that nature. And it is so needed for our
it's
caregivers out there, especially the
truly,
moms. And so thank you for doing that service. Betsy,
absolutely.
you're an amazing human soul and doing amazing work. Thank
And
you
I
for being a
appreciate your
guest.
work as well and your dedication to all the education that you give to everybody every day. So thank you so much for your work as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for being a guest on the show, and can't wait to continue to follow along in this journey that you're sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.